Love Sport, supporting England at the World Cup.
Yeah, someone just put on Periscope, capital punishment for grooming gangs and rapists. That sounds like a bit of a simplistic answer to a very complicated problem, doesn't it? Let's lighten the mood a little bit now. Let's go to Australia. And Paul Wallbank joins us, journalist, and well, I don't know why I said "and" because that's all you are, isn't it? Really, just a journalist.
Yes, just a mere journalist. Tell you what, Phil, we need a different theme song for this segment. Maybe Timey Kangaroo Dance Sport, or
maybe something like that.
Or something.
Yeah, do you think? I don't know. Given what we've just been talking about, actually, probably not a good theme tune at this stage.
Right. But, okay. Well, I didn't hear what was on before.
we're talking about paedophilia. I don't think Timey Kangaroo Dance Sport would go down.
Yes, true.
Hey, now look, I love The Shovel, which is this satirical site you've got in Australia, and it's got a picture of Donald Trump with Kim Kardashian, and the headline is "Attention-seeking reality TV star meets with Kim Kardashian." They're quite clever, aren't they?
Well, that could actually be, given the state of media in Australia, that could actually be a headline in one of our major mastheads.
Well, actually, I mean, the Shovel also reckons Malcolm Turnbull and Kylie Minogue are going to meet as well in Canberra to discuss rising electricity prices. You know, if you're going to have a...
Well, Kylie was in Sydney just recently for her 50th birthday party, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did actually meet, and I would be disappointed if the Prime Minister didn't put out a press release on it.
Yeah, so there. Do you know, I've got this thing. I've always had this thing for Kylie Minogue. I've always been very concerned about my sexuality because I find Kylie Minogue attractive, and I'm not gay. Is that unusual? This is the sort of thing you can confess on late night radio, because I thought you had to be gay to fancy. I thought that's the way it worked. But anyway.
Well, yes. Just a personal aside there. Back in the days when I was a young backpacker with my wife, she constantly got that. Being a young, small Australian blonde, you look just like Kylie Minogue, and it used to drive her batty.
I'm sure it would. Yeah. Now, look, tell us about the hashtag poo jogger. Given that we're taking this program as low as we possibly can.
And we've been talking about the shovel as well.
We're talking about the shovel. Yeah, tell us about it.
So a block of townhouses in suburban Brisbane found that somebody was mysteriously pooing on their common areas in the middle of the night. So they lay in wait for him and finally found a jogger who was defecating in their laneway every now and again. And it turned out he was a senior executive with a retirement village centre. So and also on the City Council's business advisory board and a whole bunch of other committees. So he's one of the good and the worthy, and he got caught with his pants down, literally
further than just his pants down. So was he? Was he just getting caught short while he was out jogging, or was it some sort of perverted, some strange? I mean, why? Basically, is the question I'm asking.
There has been many trees felled in this country discussing this over the last 2 or 3 days. The consensus seems to be that this is a manifestation of obsessive-compulsive disorder, and people tend to do this sort of stuff. So apparently this was one way of relieving his stresses. He'd go for a jog in the middle of the night and have a dump on the way. I thought
compulsive, whatever it is, disorders, I thought they were all about cleanliness. I thought they were cleaning stuff up. This is
maybe
not causing a mess on the house. Yeah. Anyway, is there going to be a movie deal on this? I wonder what the follow-on. This sounds like a story that's going to go on for. I can see it. Poo jogger.
Well, again, the way the Aussie media is going, I'm fully expecting this chap to have a $150,000 deal with one of the major TV networks in the next few weeks to tell his side of the story. Yeah,
that's right. I'll be back after the break. Well, why wait for a break? So what I loved was it was trending number 1 on Twitter, which is a bit really, it should have been trending number 2 on Twitter, shouldn't it, really?
It really should be, but I've got to say this for the Aussie expats. A lot of those in my social media feed have been observing, not really complaining, but observing that they have been ribbed about this all week, because it's been across the airwaves, not just in the UK, but in the US, East Asia. The poo jogger is a global phenomenon now.
That's it. It's making Australia proud. Meanwhile...
That's right.
The Bureau of Meteorology, the workers there are so upset about their wage freeze that they have taken to including it in their weather forecasts. I love this.
Oh, this is beautiful, and the Bureau of Meteorology here in Australia is a bit of a hallowed institution, but like many government agencies, both here and in the UK, it's been steadily chipped away at, and on their website, they've been negotiating now, the public servants, for years for a pay rise and haven't got one, even though their numbers have been cut back quite dramatically, and so part of their campaign has now been that they're slipping little comments and hashtags into the weather forecast for the city. So,
right.
so yeah, it's a nice little bit of subversive industrial action.
So it's sort of like tomorrow is going to be sunny and warm with no chance of a pay rise for 5 years. That sort of thing.
That's right. We can guarantee it'll rain, but there's going to be it's not raining money for us.
Oh, good on them. Has anyone been sacked over this, though? I can imagine there would be a bit of disciplinary action, wouldn't there?
I would imagine there would have been harsh memos written, and no doubt that this is some sort of breach of the national security laws or something like that as well. So apparently, though, the Bureau of Meteorology has said it's tightened up access to its website. So I think we'll probably see it a little bit slower in updating and maybe a little bit more averse to coming out with interesting things in future.
Or maybe they'll just reuse some of the old forecasts for now until they find out who's responsible. Which is pretty safe bet, really, in Sydney, isn't it? Really, just same as yesterday. It's 75% of the chance you'd be right. Right now, no. We're in the middle of winter, and it's grey and it's miserable. And personally, I think it's the best time of the year to go for a swim because there's no one down at the swimming pool. But it's a grey, miserable long weekend here. Is it really? I'm just trying to find. I've just lost the weather forecast. I think 25 degrees with our very long days from 4 in the morning till 10 at night, and lots of sunshine tomorrow here. So for once, we're doing better than you.
Yeah, we're jealous. We're totally jelly of you.
Just for this weekend. That's right. We'll be back to normal.
That's right. For your one weekend of summer.
We'll be back to normal soon. Don't you worry. Now, look. Yesterday was World Oceans Day. Not sure how you celebrated that, but I imagine a big party at your place, was there? We obviously make a big thing of it, but there might be a fertility treatment for the Great Barrier Reef. Now there is something to celebrate.
Yeah, this is interesting. So the Barrier Reef is under all sorts of stresses at the moment, and the latest idea that's come out is a sort of IVF, in vitro fertilization for coral to help coral regenerate. Every now and again when the reef gets stressed, it bleaches, which is that all the colours, the coral loses their colours, and it's part of their survival mechanism. Now, if that continues over a couple of years, basically the coral dies, but usually it recovers, and this is the idea behind this treatment is that it will help the coral recover much more quicker and give it a much better chance of survival. You've got to say, though, that the reasons why the reef is under stress, partly global warming, but also the use of fertilisers by farmers and mining in along the waterways that lead into the Great Barrier Reef, are really putting it under stress. So you think this is only really putting sticky taping up the problem. It's not really fixing the problem at all.
But it's sort of like being likened to IVF, isn't it? It's like a coral IVF, which makes you think if they can do that, if you can sort of create coral from using artificial means, then maybe we could just grow coral reefs elsewhere. I mean, could we have one off Southend, for example?
Yeah, I mean that would be a great one. Yeah, that off Southend or Bournemouth or somewhere like that.
Yeah, great for tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I was amused a few years back that Iceland was doing a better job of marketing snorkeling than Australia was. So you never know. There might be some benefits there for Southend. Yeah,
snorkeling in Iceland. Would you just be fished out of the sea in a frozen block at the end of the whole process? It was
actually in some of the hot springs that they've got, and it was really good. They had a tourism campaign. It's about 5 or 6 years back now. Really good one. And I was looking at the ones that Australia had at the time, which were pretty terrible. In fact, the late Anthony Bourdain made this point that Australia, it was like you were using the naked cowboy from Times Square to promote New York, was how we were using Paul Hogan and Put a Shrimp on the Barbie to promote Australia.
Yeah. All right, now look, finally, is China pressuring Australia a bit too much. I mean, I mentioned this last week, and our infrequent presenter in this slot didn't really take the bait on it. But it sounds like there's quite a lot of talk about this, isn't there? But just how much you're having to kowtow to China. They've convinced Qantas to list Taiwan as a Chinese territory on its website. That's a clear indication of how you're just bowing down to them.
Yeah, the whole thing about the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, versus the People's Republic of China, which is mainland China, this has been going on since just after World War II and Chinese liberation. But they have cranked it up in the last year or two, and it's not just Qantas that have been put under this pressure. All the US airlines and European airlines have had similar things, but Qantas has bent over pretty quickly on this. You can kind of understand it, though. Australia's got a problem on this, that while we're, like the UK, in lockstep with the US on foreign policy stuff and going to wars and what have you, actually our biggest trading partner is China, and we have a huge surplus with China, and where we have a huge deficit with the United States in trade. So our economy is pretty closely tied into China. So yeah, we sometimes he who pays the piper calls the tune, and this is a very good example of it. But here in Australia, though, we are having a lot of this. Just as the Americans and the UK are worried about Russian influence, we are tying ourselves in knots at the moment about Chinese influence in our institutions. And just recently, there's a benefactor to various universities here in Australia has been named in Parliament as a Chinese spy and a Chinese agent, and subject to corruption allegations. And that in itself shows just how difficult this relationship is right now between Australia and China. Of course, it doesn't help that our government is... We need the money, but also we're pretty locked in with the Donald in the United States.
Yeah.
As usual, our politicians are pretty keen to cozy up to him, and of course he's got China in his sights.
You're being pulled in both directions, which we knew was going to happen. Look, great to talk, Paul.
Well, that's right. I mean, this is why maybe we need to join the EU when you guys leave.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There's a space there at the table. Absolutely, that's a good solution. And we'll put that to Parliament this week. Good to talk.
Well, if we can be in Eurovision, I'm sure we can be in the EU.
Why the hell not? Absolutely.